Jason, John, Tom. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for coming. Because Rod's got quite a lot he wants to share, I'll just run through some housekeeping with you all, and then I'll hand over to Rod to get going. So welcome to this real-time monitoring for SQL Server with Telegraf, InfluxDB and Grafana. Really looking forward to this this session. Rod's the first guest speaker we've had for a little while, which is quite cool. We've got about 15 people registered, so some people will likely join as we go through this session. It is being recorded as well. It'll be shared afterwards. Rod's asked for questions to come at the end, so I'll keep everyone's cameras off and mics off until the end. We can ask questions then. If you do have a question, pop them in the chat and I'll collate them and present them back to him at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Rod.
Okay, cheers, Geth. Thanks. Cheers, Geth. Thank you very much. Right, as Geth mentioned, got a lot to get through today. I'll just do a very quick intro about myself. Been doing SQL Server over 20 years, ex-Microsoft, done most things that there are to do with it, to be perfectly honest. If I do a quick...
Sorry, Rod, just sorry, I don't know if you want to share your screen or if you want to do that after.
I'm just about to share it.
Cool.
So, right, share my main screen. Just that one. Right, so quick bio picture from myself. Can everybody see that?
Yes, it's very scary, mate. Very scary.
It is very scary. There's my blog post, website, sqlrod.com. If you have a look down there and scroll down, you'll see one of the blogs is a picture of a large tiger, a comedy tiger, on the front of it for TIG monitoring. So it's all in there. I'm on Twitter, but I rarely use it. There's my LinkedIn handle. I like cake. Great. So that's pretty much me. Right. So now what I'm going to do is let's get right into it. First off, TIG, Telegraf, InfluxDB, Grafana. What that is, it is just Telegraf is a collection agent. InfluxDB is your data repo, and Grafana is your presentation layer. Simple as that. Right. On the blog post as well, it's got all the links to the downloads of these. They're all free. Grafana, InfluxDB, and Telegraf on the same page. And we also use NSSM, which is for the service, creation of a service. I'm just going to get going because there's a lot of things to get through, as I said. Right, so to start off, downloaded them all already. You don't want to see that. Let's install Grafana. This is just next, finish. So I'm just going to go next, get it going, run as a service, next, install. It goes through, off it goes, fine. Nothing else to see there, so we'll go on to the next one. Next, because I've already downloaded InfluxDB, what we're going to do on the page, this page at the back here for Influx, it's actually got your how to get it, and basically you unzip it. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I just open my PowerShell where I've downloaded it. I'm just going to expand that archive straight out. Little command, which is just expand archive, tell it to put it in ccom files influx data, InfluxDB. So there we go. And I shall show you that. That's done. So now that is InfluxDB is installed, believe it or not. Yeah, it's that simple. So if I just show there's nothing up my sleeves. There we go. That is InfluxDB right there. So next thing we want to do, because Influx on Windows doesn't provide you with a service manager for it, slightly annoying. So hence why we use NSSM to do that. It's free as well. It works great. So what we need to do is back in our my little downloads folder. I get the NSSM zip in here. All I need is 64, because everything's 64-bit these days. We copy that out, and all I'm going to do is put that in the same folder as where I have put the InfluxD program. Paste that in. Yes, I want to do that. So it copies it in. There it is, NSSM. Right. So now what we want to do is, if I open a command prompt for this one rather than a PowerShell window, So if I just go to, again, where I've installed InfluxDB, there's my files. So I just want to do nssm install, and then influx, I can't type, InfluxDB. That opens up the NSM, as you can see, NSM Service Installer. Now, you can just click on the ellipses there and select the files, but I've got them in a, to speed up time, I've got them in a side window. So the path I want to run, InfluxD, obviously, the startup folder for that, which is same folder, InfluxD. Now, the arguments, 2 arguments to put in there. You don't have to put these in, but if you want to run this in a production environment, I strongly recommend you do. First one is the bolt path. Now, the bolt path, imagine that is your master database, basically. So where you want to install your master DB, it's called just the bolt DB. And your engine path is where you want to install your buckets, your databases, basically. I'm just using C drive on my laptop. On a server, you'd want to split those off, like d::data, InfluxDB data, whatever you want. And then go into details, go into there, let's put some context around there. So we've got the file name, InfluxDB service, and then InfluxDB service control, install service. Hey, fantastic. Right, just to prove that we've just installed the service. There it is, InfluxDB service. So let's start it. And InfluxDB is now running on my laptop. Simple as that. Right. Now, next thing we need to do, we need to configure it. So I'll use some of my pre-existing windows. If you at the local host, because that's where I'm running it. If you were running this on a server, you can get this remotely if your firewalls allow it, of course. And just go to port 8086. It gives you you get to see this once. So there's some things in here you have to copy out and save off, which is, I'll show you, no problems, easy. So if we get started, now username, I'm just going to say admin for now because it doesn't really matter for the purposes of this demo. If I put a strong password in there, one that I can easily remember if I need to. Okay, initial organization name. For InfluxDB, you have a root organization. For this, it could be your company name, could be anything you like. So I'm just going to call it SQL Rod. Initial bucket name, a bucket being a database. So let's just have Telegraf, because we're going to be storing Telegraf metrics in our InfluxDB. Continue. This is very, very important. Save this off. This is like your equivalent of your SA password API. So it is just your admin access into Influx. So I'll copy that to clipboard. You only get to see that once. Make sure you copy it out. So if I just save that off, breach. All right, so that's done. So we'll go straight to advanced. This is your main admin Influx GUI screen. For the purpose of what we're doing, once it's set up, you never really have to come in here. It is just how you can, if you want to add new buckets, things like that, add different accounts, this is where you do it. So, right, we've got buckets. We can see a Telegraf bucket. Telegraf, or InfluxDB's time series database is a time series database, so everything has a timestamp. If you want to set your retention, you just go to the bucket of what you want. There you go. This is it. There's no messing around writing and go with this table, delete from here. You just tell it what retention you want. So if I put 30 days, it will automatically get rid of things from that bucket for you. After 30 days, you don't have to worry about it. Nice and low touch. Okay, now, because we need to set up an access for Telegraf and Grafana, we do that using API tokens. Your API tokens are just it is just a password in effect for either Telegraf or Grafana to get into the InfluxDB bucket. So we'll generate one. I'm going to be good. I'm not doing all access, custom API. So we want access to this one is going to be for Telegraf. We want it to give it write access to our Telegraf bucket. That's it. Simple as that. Generate that. Again, copy that out. When you generate an API, you get to see it, and then that's it. It's gone. That's my Telegraf one. Save that off. Do it again, because we're principal release permission, generate API. Custom. Buckets. Telegraf again. Oh, not right, sorry. And we shall do this one will be Grafana, because we want one to read and one to write. You could do it as the same. I'm just trying to be good. So read access on Grafana there, generate that, copy that. Okay. Let's just check the permissions. So that's Telegraf has got write, excellent. Grafana has read, excellent. Okay. Now that is InfluxDB configured. I see a little shining light down here. Grafana is installed, so that's done. So Grafana's done. InfluxDB is done. Now we'll do Telegraf, which essentially Telegraf, all it is, if I go back to my folder, it's a zip file, simple as that. It's got on the web page for which you actually want to download, where you want to download from. And again, it's exactly the same. All that you need to do is, if I go to my PowerShell window again, this time, just going to expand it again. Expand that file, Telegraf file, and put it in C:\program files Telegraf. Run that. Now, what that does, or what Telegraf is, again, it's also really, really simple. Into program files there, and into Telegraf, which should be down here. Right, now, it puts a version number in there. I don't want that, so I'm just going to move that out and put them in there. Great, we can get rid of that folder now because it's empty. This is Telegraf. Telegraf consists of one exe, which is, I think it's about 220 meg, so 215 meg, and a conf file. Now, the config file here, if you open that up to start with, let's open another screen, so open that there, you'll see what on earth is all of this. Rod, I thought you said this was simple. There's 15,000 or 13,000 rows in there. What it does by default, what the config, it gives you a template for every input that Telegraf can do, that Telegraf can handle. Oh, I need that, sorry. Move that off to one side. You don't need any of that. All we're interested in here is SQL, maybe a couple of Windows counters. So let's go back into Influx to use the cheat method of doing this. Right, with load data, you've got sources, and then you've also got a Telegraf folder. If we click on that Telegraf folder, you can use this InfluxDB to generate yourself a configuration, which is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to let it generate a mini configuration for us, and then we're just going to use that. So if I do create configuration, choose a bucket, Telegraf. All right, sources. So if I quickly do a rundown, there's these and many more different inputs which you can actually use. So any of these you can see there's Postgres is in there. You've got various Linux. You've even got mine. I can't remember the game name. Yeah, I forgot the game name. Cisco, you can monitor Cisco, you can monitor Elasticsearch from here. You can do loads, Windows services, which we will do, but for our interest, we shall do SQL. There's Postgres. So you can even do Oracle. Click SQL Server, continue configuring. Right, configure. I don't really, I'm just going to call this template, so we save it off. What it does, it gives you just the parts you want And most of this is just information, just the little tiny parts you want for monitoring SQL Server and the one where you want to monitor it from, which that in my case is my laptop. So what we'll do, if I scroll down, brilliant. If I save that, save and test, it's fine. I don't need any of that. I'm not interested in any of that or the export of it. So if I just click on config now, it gives me a Telegraf file, a Telegraf conf file, just for SQL Server, going to this Telegraf bucket on this install of Influx, exactly what we want. So I'll copy that out. And all I'm going to do, I'll go into here, edit that. It's gone onto another screen. We'll get rid of all of this in there now, paste this in. Right, it's now a lot smaller. I make that large. Right, a couple of things in here that are all you need to care about really. How often you want to collect for Telegraf, because it goes right, once we configure it as a service, which I will be doing, how often do we want to collect from that service? So minimum's 10 seconds. Never try going lower than 10 seconds, but can't see the point. I'm going to leave it at 10 seconds for this demo so we get data coming in. Once you've got a load, the sizes, sort of maximum sizes for each poll that you send across or each chunk of data you send across, you don't really have to worry about those. Other things you can do, you can sort of save it so it doesn't go exactly on the, so there, if it's every 1 minute, you can have it so it doesn't just go on the 00 or the 10. You can actually make it round or not round. There's collection jitter, because if you've got a lot of collections from one server, you don't want them all exactly at the same time. So you can make it just spill up and down a second or two just to break the load up. You don't generally have to worry about that. It's only for a bit later on. Now, later on if you're doing a load of collections. So right here, output in Telegraf basically is where is Telegraf sending the data to? Where is it outputting that data to? So 2 seconds, just have a sip of magic talkie potion. Right. So here, I'm just sending it to, because I've got Influx on this same laptop, I'm using localhost. Obviously, that won't be localhost if you've got distributed servers. It's just the server name of where you've got InfluxDB and the port that you're running on. Right, your token for authentication. Remember those APIs we created a little bit ago? So what I'm going to do here, you can this into a have it in a variable and then have this read from the variable. I'm just putting it into plain text in there. That's not really useful to anybody. Somebody wants to get that and write into InfluxDB, fine. Security teams are often happy with that because it's not exactly meaningful. Right, it's rest of my configs here. SQL rod, Telegraf. Don't need to worry about bucket tags, worry about that. Rest of it, you leave. That's it. You put your token in and where you're going to. That's the output sorted. If I scroll a little bit further down, make it easier to see, you got your inputs. So what is inputting into Telegraf? So in this case, SQL Server. That's what we told it to. And there's the server we want. Now you might go, oh my God, there's user ID and password in there. By default, it'll put that. I'm not using that because I'm going to set the service up just to use local system. You can use any service account that you like, and then make sure that has got access. So a Windows authenticated service. So that has got access to your SQL servers, which I'll show you what permissions you need. They're very small. Okay, so I'm just going to change these. I've got two instances on my laptop, default and named one, telling it to use integrated security. The app name they want to use, this is standard, just connection string stuff, and the level of login, 1 is perfectly fine. Point to note, if you have named instances, you have to double backslash it. Took me hours to find that out when I was first trying to look at this system years ago now. You have to double backslash it, otherwise your it won't work. So right, that's got that configured now. We told it where we want to collect from. One thing I will show you, database type, SQL Server. Well, yes, it's a SQL Server plugin, but this is just on-prem SQL Server. It can wander off and do Azure SQL DB, managed instance, or even a pool of SQL DB, Azure SQL DBs. You can monitor all of that. Now, carrying on down, you see all of this. Don't worry about this. Is all just giving you informational. It's all informational notes for the config file if you want to change it. So this is just telling me, right, so if we've got that, it's telling me what types you can use. I've shown you that. What queries you want to include, what queries you want to exclude by default. And then this is what it tells you for each type. So we're going to get performance counters, wait stats, database IO, properties, memory clerks, schedulers, requests, volume space, CPU. There. This is what it gets. You don't have to worry about writing the scripts. They're all held in that little Telegraf file. It all does it for you. You can add custom ones in, which I can, if we've got time, I'll do a quick show on how to do that. And the same, if you're using a different type, you want to use Azure SQL DB, yeah, that's what it collects there. So great. That is the Telegraf file. So we've gone from 13,000 rows to, yeah, not 13,000 rows. If I just call that Telegraf. Oh, okay. So I'm not logged on as admin. So give me 1 second. That's my own fault. Yes, I would put in the rod ed folder instead. Actually, temp. Great. That's our Telegraf comp file. I'm just going to fish it out of where I've just put it. Some silly pictures there, of course. Back into my program files. Telegraf. Paste that in. Continue. Okay, so got the original. We don't need the original one. Let's get rid of that. Don't want that anymore. Far too complicated. And well, I'm going to leave that as Telegraf _2 conf. It doesn't matter. Right. So we've got our Telegraf config file ready now. Now, I will, as I said, I'm going to run this as a service set up in a second using local system. So if I jump into my management studio, you're probably wondering about the permissions that it needs. Got 2 instances, so you need to run this on every instance that you've actually got or want to monitor. That's it. All I'm doing, check if entity authority system exists or not, create a login for it. If it doesn't exist, it needs the grand total of grand view server state and view any definition. That's it. It doesn't need data access just to do its base monitoring. It doesn't need any of that. Nice and simple and secure, moreover, secure. So I run that in that particular instance. I also run that in my named instance as well. Right, SQL's permissioned. Brilliant. Close that. SQL is done. Now what we're going to do is create our service, which I've been banging on about. So now into a command prompt window, I go to where my files are. There they are. So to do that, all that I do is, because this functionality is built into Telegraf, wish Grafana, I wish Influx would do the same. So we've got Telegraf. I want service install, and then config. We pointed out our config file. So this one is config c:\program. Oh, not program files / telegraf / telegraf2.conf. So there, Telegraf service install and use this config file, which the config file we've just amended. So we do that. Right. If I look at my services again and do refresh. Telegraf data collector service. Great. Start you. Okay. So that's now running. Let's see. It's going to collect every 10 seconds. So if I just jump back into our InfluxDB, just to have a quick look to see where the data's coming in here. Then we'll go to Data Explorer, and there it is already. So here, you may use this particular view if you want to check where the data's coming in. So in our Telegraf bucket here, Telegraf on the right side, the measurements tables, there, SQL CPU, SQL Server process, SQL. If I just submit that, great. You can see here we've got some data coming in. Brilliant. So we know our Telegraf service is running and piping data to our InfluxDB service, which clearly that's running. So now all we have to do is then go and start making some pretty pictures with this data in Grafana, which is arguably the most interesting part. So, right, to get to Grafana, we installed it earlier. Again, local host, you can see I've been here before, 3000. I'll just go HTTP, I would have done it anyway, but localhost, port 3000 is default. Again, when you install Grafana, you can change that port, you can make it secure, you can do loads. If I go into there, right, default password, username and password for Grafana from a fresh install is admin. Way to go, very secure from an install. Log in, it says update your password. Yeah, I don't care about that for now, so let's skip it. Great, right. So now you can see this is Grafana. What we need to do is, if you think of reporting services where you have a service which then has data sources, which then has data sets, similar sort of concept. Well, it's the same, to be perfectly honest, just with more sources you can go to. So let's go to data sources. We need to add a data source. What we want an InfluxDB. There he is, because that's our middle bit, our I in TIG. Go into there. Great. You want InfluxQL. InfluxDB ships at the moment. Well, this version ships with InfluxQL, which is similar. It says exactly there. I'm just reading out loud now. Like, it's similar to SQL. So for somebody like myself, far easier to pick up. You got Flux as well. They invented their own query language. InfluxDB 3 is now come out for their cloud stuff. It will come to on-prem soon. They've ditched Flux already. So really, unless you have a massive need to, don't bother. Go InfluxQL. So let's set it up where we want to go, which is here is our same Influx service, 8086. Now, this is arguably the only fiddly bit there is. This is setting up our authentication to get into Influx from Grafana using that API key that we created earlier. So to do that, you add a custom header. So we told it where we want to go. That custom header is authentication. I should actually, it's not authentication, it's authorization. Give me 1 second. I'm going to copy this out because it's safer. So authorization, and the value here, you get let's go and find it, the API token key that we created earlier, which is, if I type it all in first, give me a second, because you have to put a keyword in first. Basically, you put the word token, space, then the API key, which you generated earlier in Influx, the one that's got read access to the Telegraf bucket. As I said, that's the only horrible fiddly bit, which once it's done, it's done. But and now you know how to do it, it's easier. So here, your database bucket, you put Telegraf, and then you do save and test. Hey, data source is working, 10 measurements found. Brilliant. Save and test again. Yep, great. Because I'm paranoid. And now we shall go to home. That's our connection is set up. Let's create a dashboard. Create a dashboard. I'm just going to mess around with one here. So dashboard, add a visualization. We want to use InfluxDB. Fantastic. Now, by default, you get this little query builder. Now, this is actually quite good, if I'm perfectly honest. If I click on it, oh, look at this. It's sort of everything, all the measures that we want are called SQL. And we'll have CPU, SQL CPU underscore CPU, where, click on plus. Oh, what do I want to check? It actually gets the tags for you already on there. I might need to scroll this up a little bit because I've got on a small screen. But if we just do SQL, oh, we want where. I don't think I actually need a where, do I? No, I don't. I don't care about a where in this course. So we want the SQL Server. We've only got a couple of instances in there. The field, want SQL process CPU. Oh, look at that. Now, straight off, there, it groups it by the time interval automatically for you. Don't worry about the fill null. It just means it gives you a nice steady line rather than bitty if you miss it, if there's a rare occurrence you're missing data. Great. So that's done that. So, well, hang on, that's this there. Up here, you've got your time. So let's do the last 15 minutes. There we go. So great. Now what else might I want to do? So, well, that's just giving it though for all of these different, all of the data streams going to that measure, the SQL Server CPU measure. We've got multiple instances in there, so we're just getting the average of those. So great. What do we want to do? Let's group it by the. My screen is a little bit small. I need to scroll down. There we go. Here, if I group it by the tag of SQL instance, Telegraf is tagging the various parts for you automatically. Great. If I do that, look at that. So now it's split it. You can't see it. They've both got 0%. You've got CPU for the average per minute, because that's what we're collecting on for the default instance and the named instance. So let's put some load through here. Bad app 2, let's start you. Oh, I actually want to do that and make it even faster by disabling the output. Okay, I'll do the same on this one as well, just so you can see some load going through. Oh, I'm in the wrong database. I might have done that on the first one as well. Ah, no, I'm in the wrong instance, even worse. Okay, great. So that's probably my laptop trying to take off about now. So if we just apply that, we go back to here. Now, you've got here your time. So you select the times that you want. So every 15 minutes, every whatever. You can also go scroll. All I'm doing is left click drag. It will scroll in to these particular points for you. And then to go back, you can either click back or you just go back to the last there. What you've also got, auto refresh here. I'm gonna have that auto refreshing every 10 seconds. So what we're getting any second now, let's find more potion. The CPU on these should start to, on one of the instances, should be a little bit busier. There we go. There we come. So I shall just quickly change this visual to make it easier to see. There we go. Apply that. So now I've got what I've done. Well, what we've done there, we've got near real time updating dashboards of metrics that we're collecting. Yeah, granted, well, yeah, we've got a 10-second collection rate from our Telegraf. We've got a 10-second refresh rate. So we've got our dashboards self-updating every 10 seconds with real-time data as good as really. But you don't just want to see a screen just going across, just go to CPU when you've got all those other metrics. So I'll show, I'll just save that out of the way. Go back to dashboards here. Now, click on new. new dashboard. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to go import. So here, you go, right, import a dashboard. Find and import dashboards for common applications at grafana.com dashboards. Hello, let's have a look at you. Open link in new tab. What Grafana do, well, what the community do, and ones I'm going to show you, I'm going to try and get those uploaded to here as well. So you can just type in a number and it goes and gets a dashboard for you. You've got all these different types of dashboards. So for collector type, we want Telegraf. Data source, we want InfluxDB. Where are we? InfluxDB. Great. So here, if you're using Telegraf and InfluxDB, people have created all these dashboards. If you're using the right inputs. So SQL Server, if I do a search for SQL, here we go, SQL Server monitoring. There's several in there. I started what I've built and what I'm going to show you. I started from some of the parts of these and then just expanded on it. So they're all there. That's the beauty of it. So right, go back to import dashboard. What you can also do, you can just go, right, when you create a dashboard, it's just basically a large JSON file. So I've got, go back to my TIG folder with all my goodies in, dashboards. Right, look at these. So detailed capacity, the capacity one, there's nothing to show you on that one. So detailed and estate health. So move that to one side. So I'm going to drag it in. So I'm just dragging the detailed text file. I haven't even bothered labeling it, giving it a JSON extension. Copy that in there. SQL Server detailed folder where you want to put it. You tell it you tell it the database that the data source, thank you, that you want, and import. Oh my God, look at this. Simple as that. Now I've created this. You're free to these. That's just a text file. They're on my blog. I'll make sure they're in my Git repo, and there'll be a link on my blog to it. They've got all the details. You wouldn't want this as a dashboard because there's way too much information to have on just a single dashboard, but it's showcasing what Telegraf can collect. So your server details here, other details, buffer cache, PLE, drive space, used versus available, stats. So how busy is the system, batch, number of block processes. These are just pulling from Windows counters essentially, and some from SQL Server. Your CPU, what that other one I showed you earlier. So I've just created, so you got SQL CPU, other, so if there's anything other running on the server, any other process, and what's idle. So that idle at naught, your server's on fire. You can select on these and just deselect. That's with anything like that. Wait stats. It's got, I don't really exclude any here. It's up to anybody to exclude whatever wait stats they want. You can just zoom in there and see the different wait stats for each collection period. So here every 10 seconds, you can see how they change. A lot of products charge a lot of money to get that visual. It's there, it's visualized, it's free, wonderful. And there's just database sizes, size growth, log sizes. There's loads, right? So let's save that. Let's overview another dashboard. So we'll go back to our dashboards. We'll do import again. This time, I'm just going to pull in the SQL Server estate health, because you think, well, hang on, that's great for one server. I want to see everything as a whole, which basically you can. I did select that, import that, and you can start to get a view of the whole. Now this is just an initial stage dashboard. You can put on the other dashboard, which I just showed, the detailed one. You saw there's a variable. Maybe you didn't see. I will just reiterate on that. Right, so you've got a variable here for which instance you want to choose. So you just select that and it picks the instance. See how fast that was as well. And this is on a rubbish laptop. Pick the instance you want to look at. If you've got whatever you have Telegraf poking into that bucket on InfluxDB, it will automatically figure it out and then display your list here of your SQL instances. Fantastic. So then going back to here. Oh, I need to refresh my screen because it didn't. There we go. State health. The same here. As you add them into Telegraf, we'll add Telegraf to them, and then add them. They log to InfluxDB. They automatically will appear on this screen, giving you overall information. The way it's doing that, I'm not going to go into it, but basically in your panels, this one you don't set a variable for which you for what you want to look at. In the other one, we'll quickly show it just so I'm not. Oh, not that one. Sorry. Show that I'm not lying. If I go to my drive space, go to SQL performance. If I edit that, you can see here, there, where SQL instance is like the instance variable. That's just how it's filtering just down to that particular panel. So at a glance, in 40 minutes, we've got a real-time updating and displaying monitoring system, and it's free. I have nothing against proper products, nothing at all. They are brilliant, except that they are expensive. If you've got a large estate, they are very expensive. So that's monitoring SQL. Great. What else can it monitor? Well, this is where the world is your oyster. I'm just going to go into Google for a second. You just Google Telegraf plugins. Oh, plugin directory, Telegraf. It can do input plugin. Input plugins. What can it do? Yeah, you remember that 13,000 row config file where it was showing you, giving you options for all of them? It's all of these. This is everything. That little 215 meg file can actually monitor. You can monitor as your monitor. Not sure why you'd want to do that. SQL's in here, obviously. Postgres is in here. If I scroll down to, actually, let's filter it slightly. So if we do Windows and we want data stores, filter it down a little bit, should have in here SQL. If you want a custom bit of SQL to run that you want to go and collect that, great. You just use that plugin for SQL. I view that. It links you across. It even gives you the basics of the config file that you need to mess with. So in here, yeah, basically you tell it what you want to run. That's MySQL. You just put SQL Server in there, and the input the query that you want to run, which something like that. You can do all of that. Right, I will show a Windows plugin because we've got time. I'll show a Windows plugin for these. If I go back to my we'll go to 8086. Now, no, I don't want load data. I'll go back to my sources here. If I type in there Windows, right, Windows event log, you can pull data from the Windows event log, any of them. The details are all actually in the config, which I've just shown for the other plugin. It's all there. Windows performance counters, all those massive long list of performance counters, you can grab them, you put that in, you tell it to get them, it logs them in the same way. Windows services, so if I do a quick, this one's nice and simple. I'll grab all of that. I realize I've got metrics on the end, and then go to our config file that we've got and get across. Telegraf. I wanted to pull Telegraf up different metrics. Edit you. Scroll to the bottom. Want to add another input on? Yeah, this is what you do. You just copy and paste it on the bottom, get rid of that keyword there. So say I wanted to monitor Windows service, if I wanted to monitor SQL services, make sure they're up. I do that. So anything with SQL is a wildcard. Great. So brilliant. I now go file and save. Save. Oh, it's going to do the same because I've opened it the wrong way again, haven't I? Sorry, 1 second. I'll just do this. Close that. No, I don't want to save. I open that with Notepad. This is much smarter. Add this into the bottom of here. The word metrics again. Again. Change this to start SQL. Deliberately left the colon on the end. Save that. Yes, I do want to run it in administrative mode. And then I click save. So now I've got a new config file. To activate that config file, move that to one side. To activate that config file, let's find my service. I'm actually going to shut my laptop up because we don't really care about bad app 2 anymore or bad app 1. Let's quieten that down. Restart the service there, restart. I'll leave it 10 seconds. That's my data explorer. There we go. How fast was that? It's faster than me getting here. So for your state, all the services with SQL in the name, I'll just submit that. You can see them all there. Some are stopped, some are started. Value of 4 or a value of 1. It gives you the number nice and small. So then you just, in your Grafana visual, you just actually pick up on that and say if it's a 4, it's really simple to do. If it's a 4, it's start. If it's a 1, it's not. You can have alerts on the back of anything that I showed you there, which I just show you that they exist. So detailed here. So you might want, right, drive space, anything like that. To get the alerts, you can just go new alert rule, and then into the alerting system. You set up the rule that you want. So which is basically the same as the query in most instances. You tell it to reduce down, and then here's your threshold. So if its disk space is below 10%, if it's in a percentage figure, below 10, it then goes right. That's and then you tell it how long you actually want to your pending period. So that's got to be bad for how many minutes in total. So if it disk space, you'd want to action straight away, but CPU, if CPU is above 90% for longer than 10 minutes, you might want to alert. And then you've got your contact points, who you're alerting to, and your policies, alert here at this point, there at that point. And that's it, to be perfectly honest. I haven't overrun for the first time in my life. So we've done it. Free monitoring. You can make
Awesome,
this
Rod.
as large or as simple as you like. I'm currently in the process of making this a lot more complicated for a corporate client. So
Question came in
yeah.
from Tom, mate. He Tom Greeley asked, great monitoring tool, is there a way to set up any alerts?
Yes. Yeah, I think I stumbled onto that one. Yes, you can set it all up from there, just as I showed.
Yeah, that came in before you actually showed it,
Yeah.
so it's my fault for just reading aloud from the chat.
No problem, no problem.
Tom also asked, this is Tom Greeley, will the recording be made available afterwards? Yes, we'll be popping it onto YouTube, and I will send out links to everybody who's come along today so they can get it off whatever stream or whatever the Microsoft service is as well that it'll get put onto. Brilliant. Any other questions for Rod? Oh, somebody sat outside. Okay, brilliant, Rod. Thank you very much, mate. That was very.
Jace has got his hand up.
Oh,
He did have
Jason.
his hand up.
Is that Jason? Oh, Jason.
Yes. Yeah.
Let me turn his mic on then. Should be able to unmute yourself, mate.
Thank you. What's the typical size, Rod, of InfluxDB?
Good
Those
shout.
corrections.
Good shout. Because what you've got is, I worked it out when I was pocking this, is for your SQL, for a poll of a SQL server, just for the SQL metrics, like we just grabbed all of that lot, it was coming out at about 15K going across the network for one poll, one server. What I didn't touch on, this is all on-prem. There's a free version in the cloud of InfluxDB, which it's limited by the amount of bandwidth you're going in. And I worked it out. If you're just doing SQL, logging it into a cloud, you can get about every minute, you can get about 45 servers per minute with the load that you'll put in. So if you've got less than that, you could just offload it up into there. The config file, you just have, instead of the localhost 8086 I had for my InfluxDB, you just tell it the URL of how to get into your InfluxDB. I think there's a free Grafana in the cloud, and Telegraf is in the cloud, and it can monitor all those already. And a lot of the free monitoring that Microsoft give you from SQL, a lot of the monitoring Microsoft give you from SQL and Azure, which you pay for, is built around Telegraf. Didn't say that.
Thank you.
Edit that out, yes, that bit. So, cool. You're on mute, mate. Yeah.
Mute. Sorry, I'm on mute. Apologies. Any more questions for Rod, or we let him go and have some lunch? Brilliant. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming, Rod. Awesome session, mate. Thank you very much for that. It was really, really insightful. Lots of rounds and applause put in there. Awesome. All right, guys. Fine. So I'll let you know when the next event is, and Rod will be making his in-person speaking debut at some point as well. So make sure you look out for him at conferences and stuff around the world. Cheers, Rod. Thanks very much, mate. Cheers, guys. See you all soon. Take care.